It's really a pleasure to be here and see all your faces. I can't see everyone in one go, but I can see that there are about 170 of you. And I must admit that I'm a little nervous. I've never been in a classroom that is so big. So I will ask you for your help from time to time as we start this presentation. Umeed, I see that you're here. You want to just say hi so that they can also see you. You can unmute yourself maybe.
Hello, everyone. Nice to see all of you. Yes, lots of people. Good.
So we've never done a class for so many people in one go. So it's going to be interesting to see how it all. So Umeed and I actually are friends and colleagues. We run something called Earth Collab together. And as Shakira ma'am said at the start, so even though I work as a researcher and Umeed works as a diver and underwater photographer, we come together to actually do a lot of programs together with not just young people like you, but even adults. And we call these programs as part of our world as a classroom kind of exploration. So the idea is that we don't use classrooms, we actually go out and explore, and we think that the world has a lot to teach us as we go out and explore. So not necessarily learning from textbooks, but everything that you can learn from a textbook, we think can be learned through exploration. So that's the reason that all of you did an exercise, I think, that was sent over. So thank you to the teachers who facilitated that and was able to communicate that to you beforehand. So I have a presentation, which I'm going to start sharing over here. One moment, and tell me if it's on. Can you see it? Can you see my page? I think I'll take that as a yes.
Yes.
Okay. And so we've called it Walk Into Pages, and Walk Into Pages is just, we think, is a start for an, I can see someone's already doodling, that's great. So Walk Into Pages is actually an idea that we've tailored to this particular class, because we thought that it'll be interesting to see how we can use a walk, like all of you did, as a starting point to tell stories and maybe eventually into making a book. Okay. So some people will say that it's actually expression, the ability to put one's thoughts into words that makes a good story. That, you know, like how you say some people are able to speak really well, or some people are able to write really well. Some other people will say it's actually the strong characters in the story. It's the people in the story or characters in the story who one is able to kind of relate to. That one is able to identify something with, that you've seen this somewhere. It could also be an idea, something that the reader can agree or disagree with, but not necessarily just about agreeing or disagreeing. It can be about something that you've never thought about before. Like science fiction can often do this, that wow, this author has created a world that I could have never imagined. So it could also be that. Or it could be an event, like, you know, murder mysteries, when you have something unexpected that happens right towards the end, and it makes you want to know what happens next. This also happens when we watch series. Maybe at the end of an episode there is something that is, you know, puts us really at the edge of our seats, and we want to know what's going to happen next. So all of these things are true, and everything that you have said in the chat box is also true. There are no right or wrong answers, but I want us to step back a little and think about, you know, the idea of a story and the idea of the storyteller, and think about what is it that is there in them, maybe, that allows them to tell a good story. And I would say that when, you know, you come up with the idea of a book, now this may seem like a big thing, right? Like it may seem a bit daunting. The first thing is that don't panic. I know it sounds really big, and usually it's adults who write books. Even children's books are written by adults. But we think that anyone actually can put together a book quite easily. And so through this presentation for the first half an hour, we'll go through some of the tricks that we can maybe learn. This is a quote by Ursula Le Guin that says, "Craft enables art." And it's, craft is not just about like what you did maybe today or yesterday while making your maps. It seemed a little like craft. You took color pencils out, you had paper, and you did it. But craft can also be how you craft your thoughts and your ideas. And slowly it builds up, and eventually it can turn into something that is art, and not just necessarily beautiful artwork like a painting. That's not what I mean when I say art. It means somebody who has practiced enough and is inspired enough that can inspire others through their work. And art, that's one definition. There are many definitions for what art can mean. But the first trick, before anything else, being able to, even before you are able to write or read a lot of books, is perhaps the idea of observation. And really, really to observe. There is, this walk that you did, it's a place that is very familiar to you. You probably have grown up on that street in that house, and you have, observed a few things that I may have asked you to observe. Houses, trees, the way land is used in different ways. But if you can write in the chat box, and I'll ask Umeed to read it out to me because I can't see it. Were there other things that you observed that maybe I didn't ask you to observe? Something new, something different that you didn't put on your map? So you'll really have to help me out and write in the chat box, because we are not otherwise able to have a conversation. Yeah.
How many of you observed the birds that were in the trees? We asked you to observe trees, but there must have been birds. Okay, so somebody says vehicles.
Vehicles, yeah.
What kind? Cars. Flowers. Flowers on the buses, trucks, food smells.
Smell. That's a really good observation.
Yeah, flowers, birds. There was a well, coconut tree, fields, fishes, pigeon, dog, crow. What about sounds? What kinds of sounds? Pollution, atmosphere.
Okay.
Birds, the field, birds chirping.
Okay, good. That's good. At least I'm glad to hear that there are things that you noticed that were outside of the list that I asked you to look at. So very quickly, we'll do an exercise, okay? Now, I want you to tell me how many dots there are and what color the dots are in this diagram. Are they white? Are they black? Are they gray? Quick guesses.
Fatima says they are white. Somebody says 28 dots. Somebody says 27 dots. Ma'am, all are white. 28 white dots. 28, 28. 28, 28, white, white. 28 white, white.
Okay.
All white, 28.
Okay. So this is actually an optical illusion, because we have, our vision is a certain way that we see that we have peripheral vision.
Some say that the dots are changing black and white.
Yeah.
White and
when I look at it, the dots are changing. Sometimes the same black dot looks white, depending on how my eye is moving. So that's because this is an optical illusion. Because of the way this image is constructed, actually all the black dots start looking white, and they kind of like keep changing. So there's no right or wrong answer. This is just to see how you guys are observing. Okay, so another observation exercise, okay? And this one is inspired by this quote by Marcel Proust. He was a writer. And he said that the real voyage of discovery consists not of seeing landscapes, but in having new eyes. Now, what did he mean by that? Think of Marcel Proust, and I think he wrote centuries ago. And this, for me, actually, there's no quote that has resonated more with me during this lockdown and being at home and stuff than this one, in many ways. Because suddenly, I used to travel a lot before on work and on projects, and this is the most amount of time that I have spent in one place in many, many years. Maybe since I was in school, I've been traveling a lot. So it this time, the last 9 months or so, I've just been here. I live in Goa. And I realized that, okay, now for the first time in a long time, I'm seeing the same place because of certain changes that are happening around me differently. I'm noticing new things in the same place. Okay. And it's been interesting actually to understand my own observation. And I want Umeed to speak a little bit about observation, but after this one next video that I'm going to play. Okay. Now, is everyone watching carefully? Okay, everyone can see the screen. So this is, I'm going to play the video, but I want you to take a minute, less than a minute, to look at all the characters, this whole room, all the detail to the best of your ability, okay? Make a mental note of as many things as possible.
Savita, your audio is
Breaking.
breaking. So turn your video off while you play the video, your own camera video off, so that your bandwidth is not too challenged.
Is it off now?
Yes.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
I was planting my petunias in the potting shed. Constable, arrest Lady Smythe. But how did you know? Madam, as any horticulturist will tell you, one does not plant petunias until May is out. Take her away. It's just a matter of observation. The real question is, how observant were you?
Okay. So how many of you notice things change in the room? If anybody did, maybe you can say what changes you noticed.
Everybody says the bear, the knight, somebody says.
Okay.
And the black bear on the right side.
Okay.
And dead man.
Okay.
Bear changed to knight. The picture changed. Dead man, the painting changes, flowers change, man, black bear on the right side. In the old man, the thing had changed. I don't know what the thing is. Knight in the place of bear. The man in the middle, the person, a man, sad grandmother, the dress, flower pot.
Okay, amazing. That's almost, I'm going to play it one more time for those of you who may have not noticed, okay?
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
Savita, turn your video off.
My petunias in the potting shed. Constable, arrest Lady Smythe. But how did you know? Madam, as any horticulturist will tell you, one does not plant petunias until May is out. Take her away. It's just a matter of observation. The real question is, how observant were you?
The clock, the painting, and his leg move.
Okay.
Flowers, dead man, the deer, painting, coat,
Okay.
and the leg of the man. Dead on wall color.
Amazing. So
Change.
you guys are really good observers. That's really nice. I'm gonna just play the rest of it so that you can see how they did it.
Clearly, somebody in this room murdered Lord Smythe, who, at precisely 3:34 this afternoon, was brutally bludgeoned to death with a blunt instrument. I want each of you to tell me your whereabouts at precisely the time that this dastardly deed took place.
I was polishing the brass in the master bedroom.
I was buttering his lordship's scones below stairs, sir.
But I was planting my petunias in the potting shed. Constable, arrest Lady Smythe.
Okay. So that was really good that you guys noticed all those changes. Many people find it very difficult actually to pay attention and see what's happening around them because you're so caught up in what the people are saying that you forget to notice what's there in the background. So that's really nice that you guys have observed that. So I want to ask actually Umeed a question. So Umeed is a diver and underwater photographer, and he tells stories through pictures. So the pictures that he takes underwater, and maybe Umeed, if you can tell us a little bit about your process of how you go from observation and to be able to tell a story a little.
Okay. So, what was quite obvious in many of your own observations of when we asked you, what are some of the other things that you had observed in your surroundings that you had not been able to put on your map? The first set of observations that came about were the visual observations, were all the things that you saw. Then a little bit later, somebody mentioned smell, and then a little later somebody started mentioning the sounds of the crow and the birds and things like that. So all of us tend to very clearly favor the visual perception as a tool of observation, and I am definitely like that as well. I am a photographer, so for me what is visual is my strongest kind of takeaway from a situation. And I really have to train myself in other situations to engage my other senses. And so when I do photography, but I also take people diving. I teach people how to dive. And so again, my students, once they have become a little bit comfortable, they start to observe the larger things, the more obvious things. So when you're going down the road, you observe cars. So similarly, when you're diving on a reef, you observe certain sizes of fish, you observe certain sizes or spread or distribution of coral, you observe certain kinds of coral more than others, because certain visual things make them stand out, and they are obvious. There are school of a particular kind of fish swims by, you obviously see it. But then as you get more and more and more comfortable, you start to observe different things, and you start to slow down. You start to see, for example, if you spend time sitting in your, then you will know that after a while of just observing the trees and the birds, you start to observe smaller things like certain kinds of mushrooms or certain kinds of insects or certain kinds of lizards. Then you start to observe interactions between those smaller things, like what are the ants doing? When some insect dies, the ants reach that place and they take it and go back to their nest. All of this is happening within the ecosystem of your garden. So observation, the way I have found observation in a particular place, and this quote from Marcel Proust about observing with new eyes, for me, that process has happened when I have spent time in a place, and when I have sat and in one place and observed over and over and over again, repeatedly looking at the same set of stretch of reef, diving the same dive site over and over and over again. till I start to observe at multiple levels. And so that's one of the things that we are going to ask you now in the second phase of observation, because your first phase of observation based on the questions that Savita sent you is beautiful. She sent me some of the maps that you've drawn out, and it's wonderful. Now we start to layer further observations into that.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions, or shall
Savita?
I move on? Any questions? No? I can't see Umeed. No one, is anyone saying anything?
If you have any questions, you put them in the chat. No questions in the chat.
So I'm going to read out, I'm going to exit this because it's a bit...
Clearly, somebody...
Okay, just so that I can see you for a minute. Okay. So I'm going to read something from a book that I really, really like. The book is called On Looking. And again, it's about observation. Please bear with us as we talk about, observation in different ways, because we really think that before, one thinks about being a storyteller, to write a book, there is something about observation and honing that ability to observe. It's not something that comes to us naturally in many instances. And so let me read it out a little bit, okay? So the chapter is called Amateur Eyes. So it starts, you missed that. Right now, you are missing the vast majority of what is happening around you. You are missing events unfolding in your body, in the distance, and right in front of you. By marshaling your attention to these words, helpfully framed by my voice, you are ignoring an unthinkably large amount of information that continues to bombard all of your senses. The hum of the fan above you, the ambient noise in a large room, the places in your chair that is pressed against your leg or your back, your tongue touching the roof of your mouth, the tension you're holding up in your shoulders or your jaw, the map of cool and warm places in your body, the constant hum of traffic maybe in the distance, your own shoulder and torso in your peripheral vision, the chirp of a bug or a whine of a kitchen appliance in the background. This ignorance is useful. Indeed, we complement it and call it concentration. Our ignorance/concentration enables us not only to notice the scrawls on the page or hear my voice, but also to absorb them as intelligible words, phrases, and ideas. Alas, we tend to bring this focus to every activity we do, not just the most complicated, but also to the everyday and mundane. To a surprising extent, time spent going to and fro, walking down the street, traveling to school, heading to the store is unremembered. It is forgotten not because nothing of interest happens, it's forgotten because we fail to pay attention to the journey to begin with. On the phone, worrying over homework, listening to others, to the to-do list playing in our heads, we miss the world making itself available to be observed. And we miss the possibility of being surprised by what is hidden in plain sight. So the writer goes on, and basically she talks about how one day she walked the same walk that she normally walks with a friend. And the friend happened to be a geologist. You all know what a geologist is? Somebody who studies rocks, right? The formation of rocks, the history of rocks, what they're made of. And this was in New York City, okay? She was taking the same walk to go somewhere, and she went with her friend, who was a geologist. And she told her, the geologist friend, about, the footpath and the stones that made up the footpath and where the stones came from, which period in history that it came from, which continent it came from, how the history of that place when they were mining for those stones. And the same walk suddenly to her became completely different. And this gave her an idea. She decided to do the same walk with different people. She also did it with some animals. And she realized that she noticed different things. So she did it with an architect. She went on the walk with a very old person who was in their 90s. So they told her stories about how this place used to look different and all of that. And she wrote a book about it. What is amazing in her message when she actually put this together is the idea that, you know, we don't have to go somewhere exotic or different or on a holiday to experience something else. Yes, sometimes the reason why we enjoy going on a holiday or on a walk somewhere else is because it's refreshing. You know, when you come back from a walk, sometimes people will say, oh, that was really refreshing. I went on a holiday here. It was so nice. Yes, it may have been a beautiful place, but it's also about having a new experience. And so it puts you, sometimes it can put people out of their comfort zone and they can enjoy it because of that. But sometimes it's also about new ideas, new perspectives that strike people. So it could be some of those things. So trick number one to start telling a story is, of course, observation.
Savita, can you put the name of the book?
Lord Smythe,
Sorry?
who at precisely
Sorry, Umeed, what did you say?
Can you put the name of the book and or some way to find that passage that you read out? Because some people were not able to hear you properly, and some have asked for the name of the book.
I will send the passage, but the book is On Looking, Umeed, if you can type it in.
Yeah.
By Alexandria Horowitz. So is my voice breaking? I'm going to maybe stop the video again. Okay. So the second trick is to document. When I say document, what are the words that strike you when I say the word document? So trick one, observe. Trick two is document. What does it mean? You can write it in the chat box. That will really help.
What does it mean to document? So okay. Fatima says it can be a book or a file.
Okay. To write down.
Tamanna says to write down.
Is there another way I can document other than writing down?
To store some information in a book.
Okay. File.
How do you document multiple senses? Somebody, Neha Fatima says in a computer.
Okay, so I'll replace the word document with record, recording something. How can you record an experience?
Document is a written, drawn, presented, or memorialized representation of thought.
Okay. So to document something, an event, a walk.
We're not asking for the definition of the word document the way one calls a legal document. So we're not talking about legal documents. We're talking about the process of collecting information, documenting what you are seeing, hearing, expressing, feeling.
So the verb, okay, the verb like to document. So so for instance, the map that you made is a documentation of your neighborhood from your perspective. You have drawn a map and followed instructions and documented what is there. Are there other ways to document? That's what I mean. Are there other ways one can document? If I were to say, don't use your notebook, figure out a way to
Salha says
in video.
In a video.
Okay, by memorizing. Okay. Okay, so there's many different ways. There's audio ways of, you can record sound. You can take a walk in your neighborhood and only record the sound of like what's there. And that could be a documentation. You can draw, you can take photographs, you can take video.
You can take interviews.
Yeah.
You can collect leaves.
So documentation is nothing but a collection of something. And that collection can be in many different forms. Okay, so that's what we mean. Okay, you can stop for the moment on chat. And one of the really useful tools that is actually not a new tool, it's something that is quite old, is actually journaling. Okay, journaling is a method by which we can, and do you guys keep journals? Yes, this is a yes or no answer. Do you all keep diaries or journals? That's your personal journal of your thoughts. Nobody keeps journals? Yes? Okay.
Yes. Many people keep.
Okay, great. But journaling is also used by other people, people who are doing it for a certain purpose. So for instance, explorers used it, right? When explorers who were going to different places, why did they keep journals? Any idea? Any answers? Why did explorers keep journals? What's the point of keeping a journal? If you're an explorer, okay, suppose you all are near Kozhikode, okay, and suppose you were an explorer that was going to Calcutta, okay, Kolkata, and you were going there as an explorer to look at something. Why would you keep it? To remember, okay?
To write their experiences so that other people can know, keep track.
Yeah.
If I was an explorer, Savita, and after I finished my exploration, I wanted to draw a detailed map of my journey, then I would probably need to keep certain kinds of notes, maybe about distance or, things like that.
Yeah, so it can be for many different purposes so that people can know, but sometimes when we are going to document a place, okay, now many different people do this. As a scientist, you may be going maybe to study something about the city. Maybe you're a filmmaker and you're going there to do it. But maybe you're just going there, it's a holiday experience. You want to come back and tell your grandparents what that city was like. Sure, I mean, now with technology, you can take photographs, and photos are very powerful to tell a story. But sometimes it is about how we experienced it. And a photograph doesn't necessarily tell you how you experienced it, what you saw, what you observed. So writing those things down and making a habit of it is a very powerful tool. And I'll tell you, it's not just for children. There are people who are even Nobel Prize winners who do this, who need to do it. It's not something that, even though technology has changed the way we are able to document, the act of actually recording has not changed. And so for anyone who is started to write a book, okay, it can be fiction or non-fiction, those notes, your field notes, your notes of ideas and thoughts become very important references. You only see the end product. Oh, wow, J.K. Rowling wrote Harry Potter. But what happened before she wrote that? How did she have that idea? And a lot has kind of gone into it. So now I'm going to give an exercise. It's going to be challenging. Let's see how we do it with 163 people. We're going to give you a minute. Okay, you come back. You have to go and collect 3 leaves, any 3 leaves, okay, from your garden or your kitchen. Even 2 is okay. Okay, time starts now. Go and bring 2 leaves. If anyone has trouble finding 2 leaves, you can come back and just write here. Someone already has brought 2 leaves. Great. Already, wow, you guys are very quick. That's great. Got it, got it. Okay, we'll give it another 15 seconds, okay? Okay, I want 2 volunteers, okay? And if you can, is there a way to me? Okay, Rihan, you're 1 volunteer. Another volunteer, 1 more person. Azwa, okay? So, okay, Rihan, can you unmute yourself? I'm gonna go off the screen share for a minute. Rihan, can you unmute yourself and tell us as much as possible about the 2 leaves? Okay, what do you see and why are they different from each other? Is Rihan there? Maybe he can't unmute or something. Anybody else wants to try?
Rehan says he can't on.
He can't unmute.
None of them can unmute.
Okay, maybe you can write in the Rihan, write on the chat box then. Can you tell us a little about the 2 leaves that you have in as much detail as possible and how they're different? Imagine I can't see it, okay? I can't see the leaves. So don't tell me the names of the leaves either. I just want to know how they are different from each other. Anybody else wants to have a go in the chat box? You can just tell us very briefly what these 2 leaves look like and how they are different from each other in as much detail as possible. Imagine, I don't know, even if you tell me the names, I don't know what they look like. So I have to see your words and imagine what they look like. Okay, with many yellow dots and its background is full of dark green in the middle. The veins are very different. One has 2 color, white and green. It looks like a butterfly. Okay. One is big, one is small. Okay, these are all great details, but will I be able to guess what leaf this is from these? So more details, make it a little bit more, look at them very carefully. And so this is not a biology exercise, yeah? It can be, because maybe if you tell me the detail enough, then I will be able to guess if I knew enough botany, maybe what leaf it is. That's parallel lines, this looks like. Great. So keep these 2 leaves, we are gonna add them into your journal. Okay, I'm gonna go back to screen sharing. Okay, so this is the instruction. So if you can keep these 2 leaves and if you can use, transparent glue, you can stick it and it'll stick really well. And sometimes that preserves it really well in any page. And try to describe on the opposite page, not now. This is after this particular class is done, you can do it. And you have to write down as much as possible, okay, about these 2 leaves. Are there any questions? Okay, so keep a journal or a notebook that will start becoming the start of your book. Okay, and we'll see over time maybe how it can transform as we go along. So this is just a quote basically to say how a naturalist or a botanist actually takes down notes, but it's not just limited to somebody who's studying, science. Even if you are a fiction writer, there is something about journaling that can help. But sometimes that can be really confusing. You don't know where to begin, right? You have these two leaves, now you don't know where to begin. You have this neighborhood that you walked on, you don't know how to start describing. And sometimes what helps actually is to start by saying that, okay, I notice, I'm going on this walk, I notice, say, this tree. And then I can say, I wonder if this tree is native to this part of Kerala. Is it really from here or is it from somewhere else? Like, is this tree natural to this environment? Maybe that's your question. Maybe it's something else. And then you can say, this tree reminds me of another tree. Maybe they are the similar in the scientific classification of trees. Maybe they are kind of related because the leaves look similar. It's not the same tree, but it's similar. So that can help you. But these three tricks, to start with saying that I notice, I wonder, and it reminds me of, actually can take one very, very far in trying to come up with a question that one really wants to ask or really wants to think about. Umeed, do you want to add anything here?
No, I think for the moment, in terms of this, expanding to what one notices and then what it makes them wonder and reminds them of, I think that's a good place to start.
Okay, so we're going to play now. There are a couple more slides that I have, and then, we can open it up a little bit more and come to your actual map and where we're going to take that exercise, okay? So, so the idea is that everything that you admire, okay, whether that is a story or a book or a film or an invention, is the result of somebody being able to step away and being able to think either really big or really small. If you really think about it, that's what's happening. They're able to think really big because they have stepped back. They have looked at things and they've been able to make connections to other things. They've been able to notice enough, observe enough, document enough, maybe to say that, this is connected to something else and maybe I can create something new. Or it's about looking really small to the tiny details that many people have overlooked and being able to describe it really well. Now, we're going to do a quick quiz. Now, I have to say there's no right or wrong answer, unlike normal quizzes where there are right or wrong answers, okay? I want you to guess and ask some kind of a question about what you think this image is. When you see this, okay, look at it and either ask a question or trying to come up with an explanation as to what this is. And you can write in the chat box.
CD, tsunami, waves.
Okay, but what is it? Okay, so I'll give you a clue. This is in an art gallery. Okay, the artist is trying to say something. I don't know the answer to what it is, but what is your interpretation? So using that, I notice, I wonder, it reminds me of, maybe we can reach somewhere. Okay, you can say that these are actually vinyl, they're not CDs, they are vinyl discs. These were before CDs. And maybe the artist, I wonder whether the artist is trying to glue these together to actually depict a tsunami. This reminds me of like a big wave or a tsunami. So maybe it's talking about a new wave of music in a particular decade. Maybe that's what he's trying to say. So that's one explanation. Are there some anything in the chat, Umeed, that you want to tell me?
They've said CDs, tsunami, waves, and waves.
Okay, next image. Now, this is a little bit more challenging. What do you think this is? Maybe you can also ask a question. You can say, if you were to, okay, now don't guess what it is. If you were to do it in a way you are asking a question about this, can you ask a question? Looking at this, what is the question that might come to your mind?
One of the questions I might ask is, what are all the dots, the white and black dots, and do they connect or denote the position of something?
So I'll give you a trick again to ask questions. So questions are different kinds, right? You can start with, they could be what questions, like what do the dots mean? That's what Umeed asked. They could be how questions. How did the artist, create something so complicated? It could be where questions. Where was this painting made? So don't say the same thing. So it could be how, what, where, when, and why. So any questions? Come on, there are 156 of you. Nobody has a question looking at this image. Doesn't make you curious? Okay, we'll come back to this one. What about this one? If you were to look at this and ask a question, is there a question? There are no right or wrong answers, yeah? So you don't have to feel like you're going to say something that's not correct. Anything? Any questions, Umeed? Not yet?
No questions on the chat except mine.
What is your question?
Is this a deconstruction diagram of something? And what is the language it is written in?
What is the language?
It's a car question.
It's a car is an answer. Okay, it's a car question
there's
mark.
a question mark.
Okay, is it a car?
Chat has been disabled, some are saying. Washing machine. The previous one was it's extinct animals. I wonder if it is some sort of machines diagram. Is it a washing machine? Okay. Is it a lock?
No, that you're guessing. So
camera. Chat wasn't working.
Okay,
It is a kitchen. It is a kitchen.
Okay.
Microscope.
Okay. So I mean, these are all answers. You're like guessing. I told you it's not a quiz. You have to. So the idea is to ask questions, not put answers as questions. Asking questions. Okay, let's try another one. Okay. This one. Any questions that you want to ask? So remember we said there are what questions, there are how questions, there are when questions, there are where questions.
I think what is written? Titanic. How there is a blue sketch.
How? What?
Why are there dark blue lines on the map?
Nice. That's a really great question.
What is the blue in the map?
What is the blue in the map?
There was a blue shade. What is it? I wonder which place map it is.
Okay.
Currents, somebody says. Is it a map of a treasure?
Is it a map of a treasure?
Why
Great
there
question.
is a picture? Where is this?
Where is this?
The blue color, what is it? Did the ship sail on those blue lines?
Nice. So, I know this sounds really simple, what I'm asking, but actually to be able to ask a question, sometimes it's not easy. And it's also sometimes we jump to conclusions. When we look at something, okay, why do we do that? Because we are reminded of something else, right? How we said the third thing, it reminds me of. So sometimes you think that you already know something because you have seen something similar before and you can say, and that's good. That sometimes is a good skill as part of observation to figure out what's going on. But before we are able to figure out what's going on, like suppose it's this image, right? Asking a question might help. Like, so the one of the questions was, what are the blue lines? Now that's good because that has now narrowed you into something that is very specific, and you are able to then go into an investigation about what that is about. And I think over here, these are all about sea routes, probably the silk routes on the sea at one point. I think that's the answer, but that's irrelevant. The idea basically is that as you're observing, as you're going on your walk, yes, you may know the names of things. I saw, some of the maps. Now let's go into this is somebody map. I don't know your name, but thank you for sending it across. So you may know the name of a particular tree, and you may know, the house of your neighbor really well. But sometimes trying to not think of the names. Okay, don't think of the names. Look at the tree, forget the name, but see what else that tree is trying to tell you. What are the questions you can ask by looking at that tree? Now, all these things that we've been saying so far is part of being able to have enough information that is yours, because these are all perceptions, right? It's not about knowing the facts right now. It's just about trying to understand how you perceive something. And that can be really helpful. Is there anything you want to add, Umeed? Because then I'm going to go into this particular, talking about the map a little bit more. How much time do we have? We have another 15 minutes. So.
No, I think go ahead, Savita.
Okay. So let's see if this works. So if you can answer, is there a question that has popped up, Umeed?
On the chat?
Yeah, no, on the screen.
Yeah, were you able to go on this?
Yeah.
walk?
So it's fine if you were not able to, okay? This is not me trying to see how many of you did your homework, just for me to understand. Quickly. I see only few of you who have. I'm going to give this another 10 seconds. It's just for me to understand how many people were able to and how many people weren't, because that's okay if you were not able to go.
I'm just putting on the chat to please answer the whole question.
Okay, that gives us a good indication. Do you have the answers also popping up? No.
I see that 57 of 140 have voted, 58, and it's 72% said that they can go on the walk or were able to go on the walk, 73%. And the remainder have said that they could not go on the walk.
Okay, that's okay. So I'm just going to share the results if you want to see it. Okay, so most people were able to go. A few people weren't able to. That's okay. Now, second question. Now, things around you. Do you have the following in your neighborhood? Okay, if you can choose more than one answer. Okay. So, if it's not just one or two answers, you can click on as many as you want. If you have all of these around you, then you can click those. Wow, a lot of you have rivers close by. That's really great. So all of these, okay, all of these have, yeah, so we've covered it. Between all of you, we have all of these things, but I'm going to share the results in 2 minutes, in a minute. We'll give it another minute because only 64% have voted. Come on, I'm going to end the poll. So if you want to answer the questions, please do. Okay. Can you see the results? Okay, so everyone has, but 88% have said that there are trees, which makes me wonder the other 22% are there no trees where you are? So that would be concerning. But okay, so why have I put this up? This is basically for me because I am not able to visit you and I don't know where you are. This helps me understand, okay, that there is a river. Hello, can you hear me, Umeed? Got disconnected. Hello. Umeed, are you able to hear me or anybody?
Yes, I'm able to hear you.
Okay. So this is basically for us to understand some of the features, the natural features that are there around your house or your homes or your neighborhoods, so that we can see where, what is the potential for exploration around you. So this really helps. So thank you for that. And now we'll do the final one, okay? So choose the topics that interest you the most, okay? Out of these 3 topics, I know you may have many, many, many interests. So it's just to understand what you're curious about. Okay, I'm going to end the poll in 10 seconds. Okay, so can you see the results? Now,
Yeah.
it says that 20 of you out of 100 are interested to maybe understand how houses are made. 84% of you all said how nature works. And 42% of you said, and that's great. I mean, you may be interested in all three things, okay? And if you look at these three things, how houses are made, how nature works, and how your neighborhood used to look like before you were born, these correspond to the three things that we've asked you to mark on your map. Houses, three different kind of houses, three different kind of trees, and the different landscapes, different ways that land is used around your house. So in your chat box, okay, let's go one by one. If you needed to know how houses are made, who are the people that you could talk to that you know? Those of you who've said how houses are made, okay, who could you maybe talk to? Where would you go to understand a little bit about that?
One person says their father, another one, Salha says architects and teacher, Fatima says neighbors, parents, engineers, construction sites,
Great.
mother,
Okay.
father and mother.
So those of you, the 20 out of 100 or anybody else who's interested to know, the next thing we would like you to do is speak to somebody, okay, who knows, maybe there's a new house that is getting built somewhere around, or a fairly recent house, and pick an maybe a slightly older house, as old, the oldest one in your neighborhood, okay, and see if you can spot the difference and speak to somebody to learn a little bit. It doesn't have to be a lot, but maybe like 6 sentences about how these were made. Why are they different? What was different before and what is new now? What changed? Just a little bit in your, so your maps, right? So you already have houses marked. You can mark other houses, but maybe you can go into that investigation a little bit. So we'll send you this as to your teachers and they can pass it on to you. About how nature works. This is an interesting one. How, if you want to know a little bit more about how nature works around you, and you don't have textbooks, okay? So there are no textbooks, and the school is closed. Imagine school is closed and you don't have textbooks. How would you figure out a little bit more than what you know right now about how nature works around you? Any answers?
Observe your surroundings. Any acknowledgement, self-organized criticality is a new way of viewing nature.
Okay.
Google, observe, observe, observe.
Okay, other than observe, is there anybody you can ask
Google,
about something?
YouTube, etc.
Okay, other than YouTube, is there anybody you can speak to who works maybe closer to nature, who is growing something, maybe?
I'm sure that there are many people in your neighborhood who at some time used to go fishing in the river.
Or maybe still do.
Many of you can find out who those people are who used to go fishing in the river or still fish in the river, and ask them about that aspect of nature. I'm sure that in some of the close by markets, there might be somebody selling flowers. So that is somebody who can tell you that aspect of an interaction with nature. Farmers, gardeners, grandparents,
Yeah.
diet.
Yeah, and how it is maybe also changing, even climate change. I'm sure you're learning a little bit about that in school and you're hearing about it. But there's nobody who probably knows more than the farmer that is close by, right? Because they have to deal with the climate changing. If there is rain when it's not
Or
supposed to
even
rain.
victims of the last people who suffered some kind of loss or damage in the last flood.
Yeah.
So Savita, time is almost up.
Yes, time is almost up. And the last one is, um, about your neighborhood and what it used to look like before. And I think this is an easy one. You can ask grandparents or people who are the oldest in your neighborhood and talk to them about what it used to look like. So, what we're going to do is probably send you guys one more exercise sheet, which you can add on to your current map and find out more things, research a little bit more, keep a journal, and see how it builds. And, we'll be speaking to your teachers and others to see if we can come back and have one more session. And then we will really get into how to make a book, because then you will have information. It's what's the most scary thing sometimes about starting a book, okay, when you've been especially asked to start a book, is that you don't know what to put in it. There are so many ideas. So some people may feel, oh, I have no ideas. I don't know. I have nothing interesting to say. And this is not necessarily true. We can start with things around us. And from there, actually, each of you, there are 160, 70 of you here, you can have 160 or 70 different stories coming out of something like this. And so it'll be interesting to see where we can take it forward next. Umeed, any closing words?
Many people have just said, my grandpa knows a lot, my grandpa knows a lot. So yes, talk to older people in your neighborhoods. They can give you a valuable amount of information that Google and YouTube may not be able to give you, and in a way that Google and YouTube may not be able to give you. Thank you all for your participation. I hope that we are able to continue something along these lines.